Have you ever stopped, I mean really stopped, to think about the invisible stuff? The forces that, like, shape your whole reality. Stuff you rely on every single day but probably never even notice.
Yeah.
Tend to think about civilization in terms of, concrete things, buildings, roads, maybe wealth, gold, that sort of thing. But what if the real foundation, the bedrock of all human society, all our achievements, what if it isn't tangible at all? What if it's built on something much more powerful, something unseen? Shared belief. That's the really mind-bending idea we're diving into today. We're looking at this fascinating new way of understanding ourselves, our history, our societies, and it comes from a source called the belief economy. From primate feelings to post-human faith. It's kind of a radical new lens on everything.
Yeah, it really is. And what's so groundbreaking about it is how it redefines belief itself. It's not just, a thought in your head or passively agreeing with something. This framework presents belief as the fundamental, maybe even quantifiable unit of human reality. Think of it like a currency.
A currency? How
Yeah.
so?
Well, not like dollars or pounds, obviously, but it's the basic medium for creating, storing, and transferring value. But the value here isn't gold bars, it's meaning. It's trust. It's the social glue that holds us together, the morality that guides us. And just like any economy, this belief economy has, producers shaping beliefs, consumers adopting them, markets where ideas compete, regulations like moral codes, assets like trust, and even liabilities like widespread delusion.
Wow. Okay, so our mission today, our deep dive, is basically an evolutionary accounting of this whole belief economy.
Yeah.
We're going to trace its path across, millions of years, from our earliest ancestors right up to, maybe even beyond the human era. We'll unpack how basic feelings turned into these huge global systems that run your life and what it all means for you.
That's the plan. And if you think about it chronologically, this source lays it out like an economic progression. It started as a sort of barter economy, basic feelings, social debts in early hominins, very direct exchange. Then Homo sapiens comes along with symbolic language, and suddenly we have this sophisticated credit system based entirely on shared stories, shared fictions, things that aren't physically real but everyone agrees to value. That evolves into the huge global financial markets of modern ideologies. Think religions, nations, big corporate brands, all competing for our belief, our investment. And now we're seeing the birth of something like belief, cryptocurrencies being minted by AI, by biotech, potentially changing the entire game again.
And right from the start, a key function of this whole system, this belief economy, was morality. It's not just some add-on. Morality, in this view, is like the regulatory framework for the whole market. It ensures stability, makes sure the most vital currency, trust, can actually circulate reliably. Without it, the whole thing just falls apart. Okay, let's dig into the hardware first, the human brain, because this deep dive argues belief isn't some fancy, high-level intellectual thing we do sometimes. It's fundamental. It's wired in, often unconscious.
Absolutely. That's maybe the most crucial starting point, the idea of the primate brain as a belief engine. Our brain isn't some neutral calculator just processing facts, not at all. It's an active, restless, pattern-seeking machine. It's biologically driven to find meaning, to assume there's agency behind events, to weave narratives. It's an imperative. It makes us the believing animal. And this is key. Disbelief isn't the default. Skepticism, that takes real cognitive effort. It's expensive, mentally speaking, to override that powerful innate drive to believe.
So it's easier to believe than not believe. How does that engine actually make beliefs? The source talks about these two linked tendencies, right, from Michael Shermer.
Exactly. Two core cognitive biases that are constantly at work. The first is patternicity.
Patternicity. Okay.
It's just our brain's deep-seated drive to find meaningful patterns. Everywhere, even in random noise. Think evolutionarily.
Okay.
You're an early human, you hear a rustle in the grass. Is it the wind? Or a lion? Assuming it is a lion when it's just wind that's a type I error, a false positive, it's a low-cost mistake. You jump, maybe feel silly, but you live.
Right. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. But assuming it's just wind when it is a lion, a type 2 error, false negative, well, that's potentially fatal. Game over.
So our brains evolved to be hyperactive pattern detectors. See connections even if they aren't really there.
Precisely. It's a survival advantage. We're wired to err on the side of finding patterns, making us naturally inclined to believe something is going on.
Okay, patternicity. Finding the pattern is the second part.
Agenticity. This follows right on the heels of patternicity. Once we spot a pattern, we have this incredibly strong tendency to infuse it with agency, with intention, with a who or a why.
So it's not just that happened. It's someone made that happen.
You got it. The source gives great examples. A sudden drought isn't just bad weather luck. It's, the river spirit is angry. Or finding food when you desperately need it isn't chance. It's a gift from an ancestor. This leap from seeing a pattern to attributing it to a conscious agent is the fundamental belief-making mechanism. It's the engine that produces everything from simple superstitions right up to complex theologies. Our brain is a storyteller, constantly looking for actors behind the scenes.
And this isn't just abstract thinking, right? It's tied into our brain chemistry.
Deeply. Beliefs aren't just thoughts. They act like internal commands, shaping perception, guiding action. And specific brain areas are involved. Your prefrontal cortex is like the central processor, integrating sensory input with your mental models to evaluate or form beliefs, trying to make it all coherent. Then you've got the emotion and memory centers, the amygdala and hippocampus. They link experiences and feelings to beliefs, making them feel personal, real, important.
Okay, so processing emotion, memory. But what makes them stick? What makes belief feel good?
That's where dopamine comes in. It's the key biochemical reinforcer. The brain's reward currency for belief. Think about it. When something challenges a core belief, it creates cognitive dissonance, right? It feels uncomfortable, incoherent.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you resolve that dissonance, maybe by finding a way to fit the new info in or forming a new belief that makes sense again, your brain releases dopamine.
So you get a little reward hit for figuring it out, for restoring coherence.
Exactly. It creates this feeling of satisfaction, of rightness. Some research even links dopamine to generating novel or unusual thoughts. So, believing itself, finding that coherence, is inherently pleasurable. It reinforces itself.
Wow. Okay, so our brains are pattern-seeking, agency-attributing, dopamine-rewarded belief engines. That's quite a setup. So once a belief is in place and feels good, how does the brain protect it? Because people don't change their minds easily.
No, they don't. The brain actively works to protect its belief investments. The main mechanism is confirmation bias.
Right, I've heard of that. You look for stuff that agrees with you.
Pretty much. Your brain automatically seeks out and gives more weight to evidence that supports what you already believe. And it conveniently ignores, downplays, or rationalizes away anything that contradicts it. It's also called the prior attitude effect. What you already think dictates how you see new information.
Which explains why two people can see the same facts and reach totally different conclusions.
Absolutely. And it creates this powerful positive feedback loop. Your belief shapes your perception. You find confirming evidence, you get a dopamine reward. The original belief gets stronger.
It's a self-sealing system almost.
In a way, yes. It highlights that the brain isn't necessarily designed for objective truth. It's designed to build a coherent, subjectively meaningful reality for you.
Yeah.
One that works, that helps you navigate.
So challenging those beliefs, being skeptical, that's hard work against the grain of our own neurochemistry.
It really is. It requires overriding these very efficient, deeply ingrained processes.
This connects to emotion too, doesn't it? For ages, we thought reason was king. Emotions were messy distractions. But that's not the whole picture.
Not at all. That's a huge misconception, especially in Western thought. Modern neuroscience, particularly Antonio Damasio's work, flips that script. Rational thought isn't separate from emotion. They're completely intertwined. In many ways, reason depends on emotion.
Depends on it. How?
Well, think about basic valuation. Good, bad, safe, dangerous. Those initial judgments aren't logical deductions. They're gut feelings, emotional responses. Emotion provides the initial data points, the first entries in the belief ledger.
So emotion tells reason what's important, what to even think about.
Exactly. Damasio's research is critical here. He studied patients with damage to emotional processing centers, prefrontal cortex, amygdala. Their logic, their IQ could be totally fine,
Yeah.
but they became disastrously bad at making real-world decisions. Simple choices, complex ones. They'd get paralyzed by analysis. They could list pros and cons forever but couldn't choose.
Why not?
Because they lacked the emotional tags, the gut feelings, or somatic markers that tell you this option feels right or that one feels dangerous. Without that emotional input, reason just spins its wheels. Emotions aren't noise. They're the data that makes rational choice possible. They guide you before you even consciously deliberate.
So our gut feelings are actually crucial for thinking straight. That's counterintuitive for a lot of people.
It is, but it makes evolutionary sense. These basic emotions, fear, disgust, love, empathy, they evolved over millions of years to promote survival. Fear for fight or flight, disgust to avoid poison, love and attachment for raising kids and building social bonds. These core emotions are like the primordial currency of social life, the first ledger for risk and reward in our interactions.
And we didn't just stop at having emotions. We started thinking about them, right? This metacognitive layer.
Yes. We developed emotion beliefs, our own theories, often culturally shaped, about what emotions are. Are they useful, controllable, dangerous, wise?
Give me an example.
Okay, the source mentions studies showing that people who believe their emotions are uncontrollable are much less likely to actually use strategies to regulate them, like rethinking a situation or using mindfulness, and they end up more vulnerable to things like anxiety or depression.
So our beliefs about our emotions actually change how we experience and manage them.
Precisely. It's another layer of abstraction in our internal accounting system. We're not just feeling, we're managing our feelings based on our beliefs about those feelings.
And this links directly to morality. You're saying moral judgments aren't just logic puzzles.
Far from it. They are fundamentally emotional responses. Guilt, empathy, righteous anger. These aren't logical outputs. They're powerful feelings that enforce social rules. Think about that quote from W. Robertson Smith. The fear of divine punishment is a powerful motivator for following society's laws, which are also morality's laws. Before written codes, right and wrong were valued in the currency of emotion. Your gut told you.
Okay, this sets the stage beautifully. We have this belief engine fueled by dopamine, guided by emotion, constantly seeking patterns and agency. How did this play out way back? Let's go back like 2 million years. Homo erectus, no language as we know it, no religion. Did they have beliefs?
That's the fascinating argument. This deep dive suggests they absolutely had foundational proto-beliefs, not written down, not spoken in complex sentences, but embodied in their actions.
Embodied how?
In how they made tools, how they used fire, how they treated each other. It was an early belief economy built on tangible things. Social obligations, shared practical knowledge, and awareness of others, the very first glimmers of social capital.
So we had to do some archaeology of the mind, digging into the artifacts they left behind.
Exactly. Their material culture is our window. Look at the Acheulean hand axe. That's the signature Homo erectus tool. It wasn't just banging rocks together.
No.
No, making one required real planning. You had to find the right stone, visualize a symmetrical 3D shape inside it, and then follow a complex sequence of strikes to get it out. That shows planning and foresight, a mental template.
Okay, that's a step up.
And the design is remarkably consistent across huge distances and hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
That implies strong social learning and cultural transmission. Skills passed down meticulously through observation, imitation, maybe basic gestures or sounds. A shared body of knowledge, a cultural asset.
And they moved around a lot, right? Out of Africa.
First hominins to do it. That required serious cognitive flexibility. Adapting to new environments, navigating, remembering resource locations, solving new problems.
And fire. They controlled fire.
A massive turning point. Warmth, protection, yes, but cooking. That unlocked way more calories, fueling bigger brains and cephalization. And the campfire itself, it became a social hub.
Extending the day, bringing people together.
Right, a place to share food, maybe information, strengthen bonds. A crucible for shared understanding, maybe early proto-beliefs. Plus, evidence shows they use specific sites repeatedly, suggesting mental maps, a sense of time beyond the immediate, precursors to abstract thought.
So these are the cognitive tools.
Right.
What about the social assets? Empathy, things like that.
This is where it gets really compelling. The fossil record gives us glimpses. Remember that Demonese skull? An old male, 1.8 million years old, lost almost all his teeth way before he died.
Yeah, how did he survive?
Others must have helped him, processed his food, cared for a non-productive member of the group. That's not just instinct, that's, well, the source calls it an economic decision.
Based on what?
Based on a shared belief, however implicit in that person's value, maybe tied to reciprocal altruism. I help you now, someone helps me later. It's the absolute bedrock of social capital. Trust, cohesion.
And there's other evidence for complex social life.
Yeah, those fossil footprints in Kenya, 1.5 million years old, show cooperative groups, multiple males, suggest structures, maybe like some modern primates, smaller foraging groups within larger bands for safety, a complex web of relationships.
Okay, tools, fire, social care. What about symbols? Anything like art?
This is maybe the most tantalizing bit. That mussel shell from Java, 500,000 years old, with the engraved zigzag pattern.
I remember reading about that. It wasn't a tool, right?
No practical purpose we can discern, it looks like. Abstract thought made visible, an externalized pattern. Maybe it meant something, maybe it was just doodling, but it's a huge step. A proof of work for moving beyond pure utility, towards storing information symbolically.
Any other hints?
Well, use of ochre pigments, maybe for body paint. And some argue the sheer symmetry and aesthetic quality of the best hand axes go beyond function. Maybe signaling, skill, status, or just a sense of beauty.
Could they feel awe, wonder?
We can't know for sure, obviously, but given their cognitive toolkit, their capacity for empathy, it's plausible. Empathy for nature, awe at a thunderstorm, a waterfall, the stars. These are foundational emotions for later religious experience. Even their physical features, like the brow ridge, might have enhanced facial expressions for better social communication.
So Homo erectus laid the groundwork, an embodied belief economy based on action, skill, social bonds, maybe the first hints of symbolism, ready for the next big leap.
Exactly. They set the stage for the revelation to come.
Which brings us to around 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, the cognitive revolution. You mentioned Harari. This wasn't just better talking, was it? It was like a whole new mental operating system.
Fundamentally, to get why it was so huge, you have to understand the problem it solved, the bottleneck. Robin Dunbar's idea about group size is key here.
The grooming thing.
Yeah. Primates maintain social bonds mostly through physical grooming. It's intimate, one-on-one, and very time-consuming. As groups get bigger, you just run out of time to groom everyone you need to trust. It puts a natural cap on group size, maybe around 50 for many primates.
Okay, so grooming is the bottleneck. How does language fix that?
Dunbar calls language vocal grooming. It's way more efficient. You can talk to several people at once, frees up your hands, but crucially, it allows you to exchange social information.
Gossip.
That's Harari's big point. The killer app of early language wasn't coordinating hunts, it was gossip. Talking about who's trustworthy, who's a cheat, who owes who a favor. It builds a complex mental map of the social network.
A distributed social ledger.
Perfect way to put it. Dunbar estimates gossip allows stable groups of up to about 150 people, a significant jump.
Okay, 150 is better than 50, but still not enough for cities or empires. What was the real game changer?
The ability to talk about things that don't exist, imagined realities. Collective fictions. That's the unique magic of sapiens language.
Explain that. A monkey shouts, lion. That's real present danger.
Right. But a human can say, the lion is our sacred ancestor spirit. That lion spirit doesn't physically exist. You can't see it, touch it. But if everyone believes in it...
It becomes real in its consequences.
Precisely. This capacity to create and share stories about things unseen, gods, spirits, tribes, nations, laws, money, that is the engine of the cognitive revolution.
And that's what broke the 1 in 50 ceiling. Because gossip works for people you know, but you can't gossip your way into cooperating with 10,000 strangers.
Exactly. Large-scale cooperation needs a shared myth, something everyone believes in even if they've never met.
Lawyers believing in the law. Soldiers believing in the nation.
Perfect examples. Or traders believing in the value of money. These are powerful fictions.
But they're not lies, right? There's a difference.
Crucial difference. A lie. The teller knows it's false. An imagined reality or collective fiction is something the whole group accepts as true or acts as if it is. And as long as that shared belief holds, the fiction has real power. It organizes people, directs resources.
And that gave Homo sapiens the edge, flexible cooperation in huge numbers.
Absolutely. It allowed for cities, kingdoms, empires, things impossible for any other species. It shifted the belief economy from tangible social assets to intangible credit based on shared stories. Scalable belief.
So, armed with this new software language capable of creating fictions, Homo sapiens started filling the world with unseen forces, gods, spirits, created the first large-scale belief systems.
Yes, building on that innate patternicity and agenticity, but now turbocharged by shared narratives. This led to humanity's first supernatural balance sheet, a whole new accounting system for reality, tracking debts and credits not just with other humans, but with these invisible powers.
Where does that start? What was the earliest system?
Almost certainly animism, the belief that everything, animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather, has a spirit and agency.
So the whole world is alive with intention. Like agenticity dialed up to 11.
Pretty much. The environment becomes a giant social network. Survival isn't just technical, it's social negotiation. You appease the forest spirit, thank the river spirit. It creates a whole supernatural economy, requiring rituals, offerings, taboos to keep things in balance. Your spiritual accounts mattered.
And if the world is full of spirits, you need specialists to deal with them.
Enter the shamans. They were the first brokers in the spiritual economy, intermediaries.
How did they work?
Through altered states, chanting, fasting, maybe hallucinogens, they were believed to travel to the spirit world. They negotiated, healed, divined the future, managed the community's relationship with the unseen.
Is that connected to cave art? those strange paintings.
That's a strong interpretation. The animal-human figures, the geometric patterns in places like Lascaux, many see them as depictions of shamanic visions, records of transactions in the spirit world going back maybe 40,000 years.
Okay, animism and shamanism for hunter-gatherers. Then comes farming, the agricultural revolution, around 12,000 years ago. People settled down. Did that change their spiritual needs?
Fundamentally, those local, diffuse nature spirits of animism weren't quite cut out for the big problems of farming villages, ensuring crop fertility over large areas, predicting seasons reliably, managing conflicts in denser populations. It required something more organized, more powerful.
So the spirits got an upgrade.
You could say that. They started to coalesce into more defined, personified deities with specific jobs. Polytheism. Now you have a sun god, a harvest goddess, a war god, a divine division of labor mirroring human society's growing specialization.
And as societies got bigger cities, empires, the pantheons grew too.
Right. Through conquest, merging cultures.
Right.
Gods got incorporated, hierarchies formed. Often the divine hierarchy mirrored the political one, legitimizing rulers. It was like spiritual mergers and acquisitions, consolidating the belief market.
Leading eventually to
Yeah.
the ultimate consolidation.
Monotheism. Not usually a sudden switch, but evolving out of polytheism. One god becomes supreme, or all forces get distilled into one ultimate reality, a single, universal, all-powerful god.
What's the economic advantage of that?
Ultimate abstraction and scalability. A universal god creates a universal currency of faith. It's completely portable, transcending local tribes, ethnicities, borders. This huge scalability was a major factor in the global success of religions like Christianity and Islam. They could build these vast imagined communities of believers across continents, unifying incredibly diverse people under one spiritual framework.
So that whole sweep, local spirits, specialized gods, one universal god, it's like an economic history of belief itself, tracking the scale of human cooperation.
Beautifully put. Each stage enabled larger, more complex societies by providing the shared belief infrastructure needed.
Which brings us crashing into the modern world. Did belief just vanish with science and secularism like people predicted?
Not really. It didn't disappear. The market just changed. Modernity created this vibrant, competitive marketplace where different powerful belief systems are constantly vying for our faith, our loyalty.
So instead of one dominant system, we have competing firms.
Exactly. Let's look at the big three. Religion, the nation-state, and the corporation. They're all competing for your belief investment, offering different packages of meaning, identity, purpose.
Okay, let's start with the familiar one, the religious economy. How does that work as a firm?
Religious organizations are the firms, adherents are the consumers. They produce and supply ideological products, doctrines, rituals, community experiences.
And the core product is intangible, right?
Highly intangible, but meeting fundamental needs. Max Weber talked about theodicy, explaining suffering and evil, and soteriology, offering a path to salvation or ultimate meaning. Religions provide answers to those huge existential questions, plus moral frameworks. That's their unique selling proposition.
Does competition help or hurt religion?
The theory suggests competition helps. Religious pluralism, like a free market, forces religions to innovate, be more responsive, market themselves better. Religiosity tends to be higher in those societies.
Whereas monopolies or state suppression lead to decline.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Lack of choice, stagnation. The product doesn't seem as valuable.
You mentioned earlier the difference between belief and faith.
Yeah.
How does that play out here?
It's crucial. Belief is the cognitive part, accepting something is true. Like, you believe the doctor is competent based on their diploma.
Okay, mental agreement.
Faith is the action part. Trusting, relying, acting despite uncertainty. It's not just believing the doctor is competent, it's demonstrating faith by letting them perform surgery on you.
So faith is belief put into practice.
Exactly. Religious practices, prayer, tithing, attending services, following rules, they convert the static asset of belief into the dynamic capital of faith. That's what builds the community, generates resources, keeps the system alive. Religions need active faith, not just passive belief.
Okay, religion is one major firm. What about the nation state? You called it the most successful secular religion.
Arguably, yes. As traditional religions hold weakened, nationalism surged to capture that market for collective identity and ultimate meaning.
How does it function like a religion?
Durkheim's functionalist view is useful here. Nationalism provides identity, belonging, purpose, morality, even a justification for sacrifice. Nations have sacred symbols, flags, constitutions. Revered figures, founding fathers, heroes, holy sites, battlefields, monuments, liturgical calendars, national holidays, and the ultimate sacrifice dying for your country, offering a kind of secular immortality.
And this relies on that idea of the imagined community.
Benedict Anderson's concept, yeah. A nation is imagined because you'll never meet most of your fellow citizens, but you still feel this deep connection, this horizontal comradeship, strong enough to kill or die for.
How did that mass imagination even become possible?
Anderson points to print capitalism. The printing press plus capitalism led to mass circulation of books, pamphlets, newspapers, and common languages.
So everyone started reading the same stuff.
Essentially, creating these unified fields of communication. People reading the same news at the same time developed a consciousness of belonging to this bounded community, moving through shared secular time, homogeneous empty time, as Anderson called it, distinct from the eternal time of religion. Print forged the nation in people's minds.
And psychologically, it taps into our need to belong.
Deeply. Social identity theory tells us we get self-esteem from our group memberships. National identity provides belonging, security, pride. It has cognitive parts, us versus them, and strong emotional parts, patriotism, obligation, all reinforced constantly through education, media, rituals. It's an incredibly powerful belief product.
Okay, religion, nation. What's the third big player?
The corporation as church. Sounds weird, but modern corporations function as incredibly effective belief systems, too.
How so? They just sell stuff, don't they?
They sell stuff, but they also command faith and shape identities, both for their employees, the congregation, and their consumers, the flock. They do it through strong internal culture and powerful external branding.
Let's start inside. Corporate culture as a belief system.
Think about it. Strong cultures have all the elements: a creed, the mission, vision, value statements, a priesthood, the leadership team articulating and enforcing those values, myths and stories about the founders, key moments reinforcing the ethos, and rituals, meetings, reviews, offsites, daily stand-ups reinforcing norms and belonging.
And this isn't just fluff. It has economic value.
Huge value. Strong culture is linked to better performance, higher retention, more innovation. It turns a job into a vocation, provides meaning, commands loyalty beyond just a paycheck.
Okay, that's internal. How do they get consumers to have faith? Through branding.
Exactly. Great branding turns a product into a symbol. Consumption becomes an identity statement. Brand loyalty isn't just habit, it's often emotional, like religious faith.
Like the Nike example.
Yeah.
You're not just buying shoes.
You're buying into the just do it ethos. You feel part of the Nike tribe. Brands achieve this by telling stories, connecting emotionally, aligning their values with your identity, think Patagonia and environmentalism, building trust, fostering a sense of community around the brand. It's capturing belief share.
So maybe we can compare these three side by side as belief systems.
Yeah, it's illuminating. Let's do a quick accounting. Organized religion. Product, salvation, meaning. Producers, priests, clergy. Consumers, believers. Framework, scripture doctrine. Mechanism, ritual prayer, nation state. Product, security, identity. Producers, politicians, elites. Consumers, citizens. Framework, constitution, laws, myths. Mechanism, patriotism, civic duty. Corporation. Product, lifestyle, status. Producers, CEOs, marketers. Consumers, employees, customers. Framework, corporate values, brand ethos. Mechanism, brand loyalty, consumption work.
Wow. Seeing them laid out like that, it really shows the parallels.
Right. Modernity isn't beliefless. It's a multipolar belief market. We often hold investments in all three simultaneously, and power isn't just about controlling cognitive belief anymore.
What is it about then?
Channeling action. Faithful behavior. Mark Rathel's point. Practice can be separate from belief. You pay taxes even if you disagree with the government. You buy the phone even if you're cynical about the ads. Power shapes what you do, often using framing and exploiting biases to guide that action.
Okay, that's the modern marketplace. But things are changing again, aren't they? AI, biotech. This feels like a whole new chapter.
A potentially revolutionary one. We're entering an era where the belief economy might undergo its most radical shift yet. These new technologies aren't just tools, they're becoming new players in the game. New producers, maybe even new believers, challenging the human monopoly.
Let's start with AI, the algorithmic reformation. That sounds big.
It could be as big as the printing press. AI isn't just helping us find information anymore, it's starting to shape and even create it, generating narratives, ideologies, personalized truths on a massive scale.
You mean like large language models?
Yes.
LMs?
Exactly. They can synthesize info, write convincingly, create novel arguments, which is powerful but also risky. Think amplification of bias, echo chambers, supercharged disinformation targeted at individuals. How do you maintain shared reality when everyone's truth is algorithmically tailored?
And this is happening as traditional religion seems to be declining in some places. Is there a link?
Some research suggests a correlation. Higher exposure to automation and AI seems linked to weaker traditional religious belief.
Why would that be?
Maybe the instrumental value of religion is fading. Historically, religion explained the mysterious, offered hope for intractable problems. Now, technology offers tangible solutions. Why pray for rain when you have AI-driven irrigation? Why ask a priest for advice when an AI can analyze data?
Technology is solving problems religion used to handle, basically.
In some domains, yes.
Yeah.
And that creates a vacuum, potentially, which leads to the rise of techno-spiritualism.
Techno-spiritualism.
Yeah, technology becoming a medium or even an object of spiritual seeking. We're seeing AI-driven spiritual guidance apps like Gita GPT or customized Christian devotionals, AI gurus offering personalized 247 spiritual companionship.
Like a digital confessor.
Kind of. Plus virtual communities and digital rituals, online congregations, virtual seeders, group meditations mediated by tech, spirituality unbound by geography.
And the really out there idea, AI itself becoming a God figure.
It's speculative, but imagine an AI that seems almost omniscient, solves huge problems, guides humanity. Could people start placing faith in the machine's logic and benevolence? A global AI religion. It's a possibility some are contemplating.
So AI is potentially a new producer, distributor, and maybe even object of belief. That's a lot.
It fundamentally changes the production side of the belief economy.
And at the same time, other technologies are messing with the consumer side, the human believer itself, beyond the human.
Right. Biotechnology and the ideas of post-humanism are challenging the very definition of human. And if you change the believer, you change the whole belief economy.
Okay, clarify transhumanism versus posthumanism for me.
Sure. Transhumanism is basically the movement that wants to use tech genetics, AI, cybernetics to overcome human limits, beat aging, disease, maybe even death, upgrade ourselves into a post-human future. It's proactive enhancement. Posthumanism, especially the critical kind, is more philosophical. It questions human exceptionalism, argues we're not the center of the universe, and wants to break down binaries like human-animal, natural-artificial, mind-body. It explores what being beyond human might mean, not necessarily just better.
And both are pushing us to redefine life, the self.
Absolutely. Biotech lets us engineer life, edit genes. We're becoming authors of evolution. Posthumanism theorizes consciousness might not need a body, that the body is just the first prosthetic we can upgrade.
So the self isn't this fixed biological mortal thing. What happens to belief systems built around souls, afterlives, human purpose?
That's the massive question. It hits the belief economy hard. Think about technological salvation.
Mind uploading, living in simulations.
Right. Transhumanist dreams of digital immortality. That's direct competition for traditional religious salvation. Why hope for heaven when tech promises a downloadable version? Transcendence becomes an engineering challenge.
It also creates a massive ethical mess, doesn't it? A crisis of moral frameworks.
Completely. Our ethics are based on a stable idea of human. What happens when you can edit genes for intelligence, create synthetic life, merge minds with machines? Who gets enhanced? What rights do AIs or enhanced humans have? We risk creating new castes, a biological or digital divide far deeper than anything we have now.
So the big conflict shaping up is human-centric beliefs versus post-human-centric ones.
That seems to be the core tension. Traditional religions, nationalism, they find value in the human condition. Techno-religions, transhumanism, they seek salvation from the human condition, seeing it as flawed, limited. It's a whole new category of belief system trying to dish the biological hardware.
Wow. Okay. Let's try and wrap our heads around this. We've covered an incredible span, millions of years of belief evolving as the currency of reality. From Homo erectus sharing food, to Homo sapiens sharing fictions that build empires, to today's marketplace of competing faiths, nations, brands.
And the underlying principle holds. Belief systems thrive when they effectively meet those deep human needs for meaning, purpose, community, morality. They provide the essential infrastructure for cooperation.
But now, this precipice. AI and biotech aren't just new products. They feel like a potential hostile takeover of the whole belief economy. AI is a potential central bank, minting infinite personalized truths, maybe dissolving the shared fictions we rely on. Biotech forcing us to redefine our fundamental asset, the human self.
It means maybe for the first time, we have to conduct a conscious, deliberate, global audit of our belief economy. The implicit mechanisms, pattern seeking, agency detection, emotional valuation, they have to become explicit. We have to decide what values to embed in AI. We have to decide what human means when we can rewrite our own code. Technology is forcing us to confront the source code of belief itself.
And that audit ultimately has to be a moral one. It's not just what do we believe or why
Mm.
anymore. As we become architects of whatever comes next, maybe the real question, the unsettling one Yuval Noah Harari poses for you, the listener, is what do we want to want?
What desires, what values should drive the next iteration of reality? The answer to that will set the principles for the new currency. It determines the future of humanity and maybe whatever lies beyond it.
Are gods, our nations, ourselves always products of this dynamic, often irrational belief economy? The audit is due. The ledger is wide open.